This is the Filmy McFilm Film Show.
Oi, son.
Oi, Deck.
How you doing?
Yeah, good. How are you?
What's cracking with you this week?
Nothing. On annual leave today, so
Oh, yeah, nice.
I'm looking forward to it. Birthday on Sunday. So.
Lucky you. How old are you going to be?
Oh, don't know if I can say 31.
You're going to be an old cunt.
I know. They
Yeah.
say after 30 it all goes downhill. So
I know.
It was.
So 30 was your peak.
It was bad before, so we'll see what happens.
Did you accomplish all the things you wanted to accomplish in your life?
I did not.
Did you accomplish any of them?
Well, I did climb that mountain in Scotland, so I will take that as one of
Okay.
my biggest.
And what was that mountain?
Arthur's Seat.
Okay.
It was not really a mountain. It's
More of a hill.
It's a giant hill.
A mild, gentle slope.
Yeah. It was hard.
Alright. We're here to discuss Haine. Directed by Mathieu Kassovitz. Starring Vincent Cassel, Hubert Koundé, and Saïd Taghmaoui. Alright, so I probably didn't pronounce any of those correctly.
It's probably good to start it off with saying we're not mispronouncing them on purpose.
We're just retards.
We're just doing our best.
Yeah.
I actually studied Spanish in school, so a bit out of my forte.
I'd studied Spanish as well, actually.
Well, we didn't do French, so
Yeah.
we'll do our best here.
I was terrible at Spanish as well. I actually didn't even go to my exam in the end. I went and got a haircut instead.
I got a U, which was actually the best in my class.
Really?
Yeah.
What class were you in?
Some bad special class.
Yeah, I was thinking, that was the word I was waiting for, to be honest.
Spaz down. So, I've never actually heard of this film, and I've seen it twice now. Obviously, once before and once for the purposes of reviewing it again. Always good to watch the film before we do the podcast, obviously. I didn't know much about it, but I remember going to work recently when I saw it the first time. I saw some guy on a train. Wouldn't call him hipster, but he was wearing like a Haine. Sorry,
It does have like
yeah.
Don't fucking say sorry, fuck him.
Yeah.
We're not French, like we can't say all the words perfectly, but it does, like the look of it, because was it the poster or just that image of him in the mirror of the pretending he's got a gun?
So basically, what it was.
It looks like it looked good on a t-shirt.
Yeah. So he was wearing a black shirt in the middle. Like obviously, this is all in black and white. So any black t-shirt with like a black and white image looks cool as fuck. And it's all three of them together with I think Vinz holding the gun fingers like that. And I'm like, what's this? It's quite cool. So
You recognise the actor as well.
Yeah, I went and checked it out, and I was like, this film's class, man. Like, I just assumed it would be some kind of, obviously from the picture, some kind of crime, gangsterish film, which
I was expecting more of a straight, like, conventional gangster movie. Also, do you know, was it filmed in black and white to save money? Or was it an artistic, creative choice?
From what I think he went for the black and white for a stylistic kind of thing.
Is this one of the few films, like modern films, where they intentionally put it in black and white, where it does actually help it?
Yeah, I mean, the only other one I can kind of think of in recent memory is, remember The Artist?
No, I never actually watched that. That was a silent movie.
Yeah, obviously they've done it because
that was a whole other step.
The time period, obviously it's black and white, but that's pretty cool. And obviously, I've got to bring up Raging Bull.
Yeah, Raging Bull.
You know what I mean? Like,
but you know what I mean? Where sometimes they do that and you kind of think, there's a line where it's pretentious or it actually helps the movie. And I don't know why one sits on one side of the line or another. Do you know what I mean? Like, why is it just the fact that when it's a really good film and then you put it in black and white, it kind of makes it cooler? Like a bad film in black and white, you're immediately going to say, that's pretentious.
Yeah, I mean, I guess your point could be true because this really was not a big budget film at all. It was an independent film if you look at it. So maybe they did shoot in black and white to save money. But the whole point is, it works. Like, I couldn't, after watching this twice now, I can imagine it in colour. With the black and white really is cool as fuck. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's true. Like, I couldn't picture it in colour. But is that because we've seen it in black and white?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it really does suit, like...
Because a lot of the time, that's become a common thing nowadays where there'll be director's cuts where it's in black and white. And it used to be a big thing on DVDs every now and then where one of one of the DVDs in a case that you'd get would have a version of the movie in black and white.
Yeah.
And some of the choices of the movies are a bit random as well. Like, not the ones you'd think it'd be in more of the, I don't know, like the arty crowd. But Zack Snyder had a cut of Justice League, I think it was, that was in black and white.
Yeah.
Where you kind of think, why?
Is that the 4 hour, 5 hour?
I'm not sure. It might have not even been Justice League. I know it was one of his movies. And another one was The Mist. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
It was a Stephen King novel adaptation, or I think it was a short story adaptation, but both are films like you kind of wouldn't pin them as the kind of movie that would have a black and white cut, or ever have been shown in black and white.
Was it a creative choice as well by the director to put it in black and white? Because this film really is about them in the suburbs, you know, the black sort of racial tensions, police brutality. Was that a creative choice to basically be like,
maybe
this is what we're trying to put across?
See, my thing with that is I don't think it would actually come across in any real way, and it wouldn't be worth it to put in black and white. I think sometimes you overthink things a little bit, and it might just be is like, sometimes it just because it looks good, and it also might be as simple as like, it might be an intangible of why it suits it. Because we were trying to work out, I said before, why do some movies fall on one side of the line and not the other, in terms of it suits black and white or it doesn't suit it. And sometimes it is just an intangible, you can't really put your finger on it. It's like, why does a piece of music necessarily go with a moment better than others? Like, there might be an obvious one where obviously for an action scene you want big bombastic music, but sometimes a silent, you know, sometimes like you have action scenes set to opera music, and sometimes the irony or like the juxtaposition suits it more. So you can't always necessarily, but you don't know why necessarily. Like, do you know what I mean? You can't put your finger on why one works and not the other. So he might have just done it, tried it out in the editing room, and been like, do you know what, this looks good.
Yeah, put this in black and white.
And it would probably happen more often. Like, it's not a coincidence that it tends to happen with independent films and art films more. It's the fact that you can't release like even a small budget movie, but through a studio and do it in black and white. Like, they just won't let you. Like The Mist, Frank Darabont actually wanted to release it originally in black and white.
Yeah.
And his studios were like, no, you fucking not. Like,
yeah.
Because it would, like, naturally, when you're trying to scoop up, if you're any kind of budget, even smaller budget movies, you can't rely on just proper movie fans, like movie buffs, whatever you want to call it, movie nerds like us, to go see it, because there's just not enough of them.
Yeah.
So you need to scoop up those other, like, average cinema goers, and you're like, black and white is just gonna put a big chunk of the population off.
A couple of other honourable mentions.
Oh, sorry, just before you move on. Belfast, recent big...
Yes, I was thinking...
Completely disproving my point I just made. Belfast, fairly big budget movie, fairly big release. Pretty big release, actually. Black and white movie, so...
Yeah, a couple of other honourable mentions on this. Could go on the subject for about 20 minutes, but we'll move on. Obviously, Tarantino done it in Kill Bill for the most violent scenes where he's like cutting off people's arms, so it's not in black and white. It looks a lot less worse with blood spewing out. Like,
I forgot about that. Yeah,
and Robert Eggers' Lighthouse, obviously, all black and white. That suited it.
The Lighthouse suited it perfectly.
Down to the ground.
Yeah, I think it's well, there you go. It's the setting as well and the era.
Yeah,
that makes it completely make sense.
I think with the Lighthouse, I think the black and white suits it. Because in a way that the film is just strangling you, and you're just it's just like so weird, and then on top of it you're like, there's no colour in this even, so it suits
the era. But also another thing that was amazing that they allowed him to release it like that was the aspect ratio, because it was a solid square, kind of like Kubrick used to do with The Shining and what do you call it, Barry Lyndon. But so the film takes place over 24 hours, and I love movies like this. And it's such a common trope with like these sort of movies. You know, it's like a gritty slice of life, urban sort of drama, whatever you want to call it. They always tend to often do the 24-hour time span, like kidulthood and adulthood, and all those movies did it. Yeah. And I'm not sure why. It's. I think it's because it's quite easy to write a story in that context, because you don't really need to write a plot as such.
Yeah.
You can just show. You're more just showing a slice of people's life over the course of a day, and you never need a reason for them to go see anyone. Do you know what I mean? True, if a movie spans over 20 years, every scene where they're meeting someone, there's got to be a very specific fucking reason why they're meeting them.
Didn't they do that in what's that film? 24 Hours in a Day. It's 3 different people's storylines interjection. Is it Crash?
It could be loads of movies.
It's loads.
What happens in it?
Basically, like, it's set in LA. There's racial tensions.
Yeah, it's Crash.
And then basically 3 people's life over the course of 24 hours, for whatever reasons, come together to a boiling point. So that'd probably be a good analogy compared to this, because it is kind of
maybe. I mean,
similar.
There's countless movies you could compare. To be fair, but I love those sort of movies because they're just easy, and they're just easy to follow as well. Like, there's not really a plot, and it kind of gives the writer and directors and actors a bit of freedom in that they don't need to. They can just have scenes in there that are in there for no reason.
Yeah.
I really like the framing as well in some of the scenes. Like, do you remember the scene where the young Vince, Hubert, and Aziz, is it? Aziz all sitting around, and they're that young kid's telling them about that. And talking about that famous person or whatever. But I just love the framing of the shot. Like, that whole scene is pointless essentially, but the whole film is a series of scenes like that, because that's kind of the point. There's no, it's got an overarching message, but it doesn't have any through line of a plot, which is fine.
Yeah, I think.
But I love how that shot's framed when he's telling the joke about the celebrity, because you have him in the middle, Vince hearing the joke.
Yeah.
You have Hubert on the side playing with some knick-knack drum that's kind of distracting you, so you start looking at him, and then Aziz on the other side starts throwing stones at the back of the kid's head without him ever realising, but you start looking at that, and there's a lot of moments in the film where it will be just a stationary long shot, but it's what's going on in the space within the shot that's really interesting. Like another shot was later on where they're in the toilets.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought at first it was a split screen, but it wasn't. It was the way they were using Hubert and Hubert and Vince were in 2 of the toilets taking a piss, and they had both the doors open, so it was like splitting the screen, and then Aziz was in the middle making a phone call.
Yeah.
And just the way they set it up and the way it looked, I thought it was a split screen, and then revealed it wasn't, and it was a lot of interesting blocking going on throughout the whole movie. But that scene was class as well, with the old man taking the shit.
Yeah, that was the scene that really, we'll get to it later on.
We'll talk about it now.
That stuck with me the whole film, because, and if you read a lot of like forums on it and stuff like that, because this is quite a very well-known film now since 1995.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the BFI, the British Film Institute, constantly do like screenings of it.
Oh right, yeah.
So you can go down to the. Did we go to the BFI to Corinth?
Yeah.
We've been down there, and
it's a nice screen, but it's freaky when you come out, because you know the way when you're in a cinema at any time, you forget where you are a bit.
Oh no, it's like
when you walk out and you're just on the Thames, and you're like, holy shit, and there's tourists running about taking photos.
They're constantly doing screenings. This is like one of their favourite films.
Yeah.
But the scene in the toilet was weird, because if you read like forums of the film and stuff, that's the scene that everyone refers to. Like, what is this old man like trying to get at? Like,
because I was thinking about it, and it was kind of, again, like, this movie on paper always sounds like it's going to be pretentious, but it doesn't come off like that on screen, because he comes out and he says this whole bizarre riddle. He tells a story that's essentially like a riddle to them, and the story is about when he was shipped off to
the war,
Siberian. Well, I don't even know. I don't even know what the context
maybe
was exactly.
Prison.
He doesn't explain, but he was shipped off with a friend to Siberia on a train to go to prison camps, and you could only go for a shit when the train happened to stop for water to fill up for the locomotive. So all the people would run out and take a shit in front of each other, obviously not caring, except for his friend who was shy, and his friend would only run out at the last second when everyone else had finished taking their shit. And because of that, he couldn't get back in time. And it made me laugh as well because they said his ankles...
running, yeah.
No, his trousers kept falling around his ankles as he was running for the train. It made me think of you that time when we were dropping you home and you were drunk and you went to walk towards your door and you hadn't done your trousers properly.
I just put my thumbs up and
You'd gone toilet like a minute before and you were walking towards the door and your trousers fell around your ankles and you just went flying forward.
It's like Gaza when he...
Yeah, he does the lean.
But no, it's like Gaza when apparently... Do you remember when Paul Gascoigne was trying to find Raoul Moat? That serial killer.
Raoul Moat was this... he was this serial killer. Well, he wasn't so much a serial killer. He was this guy who went mad and just decided... He got out of prison and he found his girlfriend, former girlfriend, sleeping with a policeman. So he ran in and shot the both of them. And then he just decided to go on a crazy Grand Theft Auto style manhunt of just hiding out in the woods and killing policemen whenever he could. He didn't kill too many, but Gaza, who was this famous footballer who got into...
Like on loads of drugs.
Yeah, he was off his tits on drugs at this point. And what happened again?
So apparently what happened is, or it could be a separate story, but it's like mythology now. Apparently, like, he went to find Raoul Moat, and then before he went to find Raoul Moat, he went into like a Ferrari dealership. And then he walked in and was like, how much for that Ferrari? And they were like, that's Paul Gascoigne. And then all of a sudden, when he was standing there looking at the Ferraris, his trousers just pulled down. He was just standing.
He was offering him a sandwich or something for the Ferrari,
and then
wasn't he?
basically after that, he just pulls his trousers up, leaves. And then later on, it turns up just to where the police cordon is with like sandwiches and beers and like, I demand to see Raoul Moat. And they're like, we can't let you in, obviously. So it just reminded me of that. It was this madness.
I know.
But I suppose...
Anyway, the ankles, yeah, so we didn't even finish the story the guy was telling. So the guy, you know, he's dropping around his ankles and he runs for the train, but he misses the train. And the three kids in the toilets, at first they're ignoring him. But as the story goes on, they actually get interested and they start listening to him. And then they ask him, like, they kind of think nearly it's a joke story, like it's going to end with a joke. And they go, oh, what happened to him? And he goes, nothing. The train left and he froze to death. And then he walks out and they kind of like turn to each other like, why did he tell us that? And I was thinking, why, like, what is the message of that in that context? Because he overheard them talking about all their problems and the trouble they're getting into with the riots and stealing a gun and all this. And he overheard them, then he comes out and starts telling the story. And the point of the story is I think the point of the story is appreciating just the little things. Because he comes out and he says, oh, isn't it wonderful to take a good shit?
Yeah.
And do you know what was funny as well? I really needed to take a shit at that time. And you know what? Like, I was letting the movie go on a bit longer. And it got me thinking, like, yeah, it really is great to take a good shit. Do you know what I mean? Because it is.
Yeah, the way I saw it, Declan, is they're moaning about their problems. Vinz is saying, I'm sick of this life. I'm sick of being stuck in the poor areas, blah, blah, blah. The way that I translate the story, and this is the good thing about this film and movies in general, we can have conversations and one person will see it as that and the other person will see it as that. That causes debate. I saw it as this guy was afraid of shit, hesitated, died. So they're hesitating, being stuck in this lifestyle, just like moaning, waiting. If you don't take life by the horns, then you'll be left behind, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Which
maybe.
is, this guy got left behind and died. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, see, I was stuck between taking...
Your chances.
No, I was stuck between what part of the story I was supposed to be even taking a message for. No. Was it the start where he says, isn't it great to take isn't it wonderful to take a good shit? Or was it the end? Because the end bit where he dies and everything, what you took the message from, was the bit that they weren't interested in. No, that was the bit he didn't care about.
Yeah.
Because they ask him what happened to him. And he goes, oh, nothing, he froze to death. The thing he was caring about, the old man, was, isn't it wonderful to take a good shit? To be able to take a good shit. Maybe that leads on to the whole story.
Maybe it was be grateful for what you have and what you can do. and then he just left. But who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Is this one of those things that, as I said, if you look at like the forums, they're just constantly debating them. Like you can go on Reddit and it'd be like, what does the old man mean in Le Haine? And then like all different theories and shit.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
which is why it's good. Like,
yeah.
It's the same thing with why a movie trailer is always going to be better than the actual movie.
Yeah.
Most of the time, is because it hints at enough to get your imagination filling in the gaps. And it's the same thing where when you're ambiguous, not in an annoying way, you don't want like the whole ending to be ambiguous of like what even happened or what was going on, but when little moments like that are ambiguous, it's better. Any message he could have is never gonna be as useful as just making you think about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like making yourself think about it. Like it sounds pretentious to be like, oh, it provokes thought, but it literally does. Like you can provoke thought about a social message like this one, or you can provoke thought about just being scared of stuff like a horror movie does. It doesn't, it's the same thing essentially. And that's what horror movies are better when they don't show you everything. Like when's the least scary part of most horror movies? The last 20 minutes where you can really see the monster.
Yeah.
Because they got to show you by the end of it.
Yeah.
Like Alien, once you actually see the dude in the suit walking around, you're like, that's a dude in a suit. Yeah. It's scary.
It's
the hour and 40 minutes before that.
But what I really like about this film, as I said when I first watched it, and was this your first time?
Yeah. I never even heard of it.
Basically, the best bit of it, in my opinion, is the opening, because I watched it. It come up, obviously, watching English subtitles. Le Haine hates just underneath. I was like, cool, where's this going? And then Bob Marley starts playing or something. No, it's one of the characters talking about a guy falling from a skyscraper. Have you ever heard the story about a guy falling from a skyscraper? Each floor he passes, he says, yeah, it's going all right so far. Yeah. And then it cuts to them writing, and a French guy says to the police in riot gear, you cowardly killers, it's all right for you to kill us. You've got guns, we've got rocks. And I'm like, shit, this film's going to be bad, boy. Yeah. Like, from there, I was kind of engrossed straight away. I was like, let's see where this is going.
Do you know what's good about it as well is I like the fact that it didn't do the thing a lot of these movies set in these around these sort of characters, or like characters in this sort of position in life, is they weren't angel. Like it wasn't. Yeah. It didn't feel one-sided. Like they were knuckleheads, especially the main guys. They were fucking.
Vinz, yeah,
yeah. The only Hubert was the most likable one out of the three.
The boxer guy.
Yeah, the big black guy. He was the most likable one, but he was a fucking dickhead as well.
I think he was the most had his head screwed on.
He had his head screwed on, but he was still volatile compared with like your average person. Like when what do you call it? When they go to the art exhibit.
Yes, that's.
Also, we're doing this all out of order, but to be honest, it's a film
it's
that
a mesh
it could. Things. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. But they go to this art exhibit. They just kind of stop in there because basically they've been locked out. They can't get back to their neighbourhood because they've missed all the trains and the cabbies won't take them because they just look like scumbags. So they're just kind of like finding places to hang around and get some warmth. And they go into this art exhibit and they start chatting up these three girls. Oh, yeah. And Hubert's firstly chatting them up and he's getting in there. And then Aziz comes over and he's just like he's just so obnoxious and annoying, and the way he goes about it, that they kind of like, they're just like, nah, we don't want it.
Yeah.
And their immediate reaction is to like start threatening them and smashing the place up. And Hubert starts doing it as well. He starts like knocking over paintings and smashing things up.
No, Vince was the worst. He just bowls over and he like goes to this poor girl. Who are you, the Wonder Bra bitch? And I was like, that's rude. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
no, but that's the thing. Hubert was the best out of all of them. Yeah. But they were dickheads, and you could see how they were escalating the problem just as much as some of the police were.
Yeah.
And Aziz's brother was a policeman as well, a new policeman. And so that was a good way of positioning, like showing that sort of struggle, because we, not naming any names, but we have a friend who's a policeman who is black, and who occasionally, like when he was working on the Black Lives Matters protest, he would get abuse from a lot of the protesters saying you're on the wrong side of this, blah blah blah, And is that sort of... Because obviously police forces in modern recent times had a push to try and get as many different backgrounds in the force as possible. But there's always... You can't do that without bringing people from those areas where naturally...
Exactly.
You know, it's going to be harder. It's just more of a headache doing the job when you're from that area. Because you're getting it from both sides. Because, like, you know, the people from other neighbourhoods go home and don't see those people on a daily basis.
So, I'm going back to your point about Aziz, his brother. So there's one scene where there's two things I want to tell you about what I'm about to say. Number one, Vinz, the French Vinz. He's just a dickhead. I got that straight away. Yeah. He's number one, a compulsive liar. Everyone has one of them in their group, and the rest of them like just shut up. Like,
he got caught out at one point where
he said he shagged a bird or something.
No, they needed someone to drive, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you can drive. You said you drove that beautiful girl around in a Mercedes in Israel."
And he's like, "It's a different." That was
he was like,
"That was an automatic."
Yeah, he was like, "They drove on the other side of the road." Or
And then he basically, it transpires that he basically wants to go to prison. He wants to go to prison because everyone else has done it, and he feels inferior to them, not as hard. That's why he's acting as like such.
Well, he's an idiot because a lot of the plot centres around
him with a gun.
Well, it centres around the fact that during the riots the night before, where a lot of things have been burned down, like Hubert's boxing gym that he was using has been burnt down, and one of the policemen lost their firearm during the riots, and somehow it comes through to Hubert, who gives it to Vince, and the thing I kind of found funny is, like, do you reckon Americans watch that and think, like, what? Yeah. Does that not just seem comical to them, like, seeing, like, it being on the news, like, a policeman lost his gun, so someone might have it in the public, one gun. But anyway, a lot of the plot centres around that, and Vince gets it, and he's like a kid with a new toy. He's obsessed with it, showing off, and you have moments like people like that in life. Like, I remember two of our friends... someone, I think they were crossing the road, and this guy who used to go to our school, a few years older than us, he nearly ran into him, and they kind of like shouted something because he was driving too fast at night, and he heard him reverse back, and he was like, "What did you say?" Blah blah blah, and they were like, "You fucking nearly just run us over," and he pulls out a gun, starts pointing it in their face.
Fucking hell. But
the way he did it was clearly because even like they didn't really shout anything that bad. His whole reaction was, "Oh, I finally get to show my toy off."
Yeah.
It was that sort of moment. And it was a similar thing with this guy where he is a fucking idiot. Also, how old did you think they were supposed to be?
Do you know how old?
No, I'm asking.
I think they're still in school. Because I think...
They all look way too old.
I think the reason that this plot unfolds, I think they're meant to be in school on this day. But someone's done in the riot, someone's smashed up the school as well, so they can't go.
Right.
So they're just... Basically, the whole point of this...
See, I was getting that feeling, but...
Yeah.
The other two could be, but... what's his name?
Hubert.
No, Hubert looks like he could be. He's just tall, but... Yeah. Vince...
looks old.
He looks like 30 or something, man. He looks like he's been on crack for like 20 years.
So basically, the whole day transpires that... Why this whole day transpires, and they probably do it on the weekend anyway. They're just trying to kill time the whole day. Like they can't do anything basically, Declan, because it's the day after the riot, and everything they would normally do, like Hubert would go to the boxing gym, burnt down, the school's fucked or whatever. So they're just at a loss. Just like I think that's why they all go up to that roof, but. They always go up to that roof because the police officers come up and they got tents up there and shit. Like they're doing all that. But going back to the roof scene, I think Vinz is talking to Hubert, and he's like, "Yeah, either I get community service or they put me in prison, and I really want to go to prison." And then Hubert turns around and says, "A month for theft." That's pathetic, and he still wants to go. Everyone else has been in prison, so you can kind of take his mindset of how like deluded he is.
Yeah, he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
I remember being in a car with someone when they were asking someone else advice on if they should join a gang or not, And this was when we were like 18. I was like, you fucking
What did
retarded.
the other person say? Yes, go on.
Yeah,
It's
they were
good
like,
for you.
what are you on about?
Yeah.
Man? Like, what part of that do you think's a good life choice?
Why don't you do some education or do something? But people are like that in life. So going back to your
People, yeah, it is funny because you do meet complete fucking idiots like this, who, like Hubert, is smart as fuck because all he wants to do is get away from it.
yeah.
Everything he's thinking, like, I need to get away. He's always like, I need to get away from this bullshit, blah, blah, blah. He's friends with people and he's stuck in it, so you naturally,
Yeah.
you don't dismiss him in the moment, but he's just he's zeroed in on wanting to get out, whereas Vince is just zeroed in on wanting to be. He wants to go to prison. I mean, how much dumber can you get than that?
Yeah,
Like,
I know. But Aziz, is it? He said
Yeah.
his brother's a policeman. Or a new police cop.
Yeah.
Is that... See, this is where I want some clarification, because I was kind of getting lost in some of the characters. Is it his brother on the roof that says, I told you to go, and I'll deal with this? Or is it the guy that always is helping them, that they, for some reason, hate, even though he tries to help them all the time?
Oh, no, that guy is his brother.
Oh, okay, cool. I get you.
Yeah.
But they're well rude to him. They're like, I'm not your friend.
Yeah, they're rude to everyone.
And he's trying to, like, get them out of trouble. Like, what the fuck? Like,
They're fucking idiots.
but we probably should...
Well, it's like in the scene where they're going up to see their friend in hospital
Yes.
and he won't let them in.
Yeah.
Or that policeman in general's not letting them in.
Yeah.
And they're like starting shit and he's going like, you fucking idiots, like the police are
Yeah.
protecting him, don't like. But then again, you see the bad side of the police later when they capture Aziz and Hubert
Yeah.
and they're using strong arm,
Yeah, like punch.
well, illegal tactics
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
They're beating the shit out of them and they got them tied up and that's fucked up.
But we probably should say, we touched on it here, probably should have mentioned this before, there's a whole nother subplot of this film where basically the riots happened and their friend... We see him a couple of times because they're watching it on TV and he like flashes up. The police have basically battered him, I take it, and he's been hospitalised. So when they find the gun, the whole time this idiot Vince is like, if I see a pig, I'll waste him. And like, it kind of sets the tone of the film. Like, obviously, the riots and him being beaten up is probably not the first time it's happened.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the subplot of the film as well. It's always in like the back of their head, Vince's head. I get it. If he sees a cop, he's just going to pull it out, which actually happens later on in the film.
Well, the thing is, he's fantasizes about it the whole time,
I know,
about shooting someone or anyone.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it cuts to like fantasies all the time where he's holding his gun like he's holding his hand like a gun
And he's doing the whole scene with a taxi driver in the mirror, where he's going up, you talking to me? You talking to me? Like, so.
And you can see he's got this stupid fantasy, but you get hints that he doesn't really have the bottle when it comes to it throughout the movie, because you see scenes where, you know, his friend Hubert at one point just calls him out. It's like, stop having a front, like,
Yeah.
you're not convincing anyone. And there's a scene where, so there's this guy called, what's the subplot you were about to say? Was it about Snoopy?
No. So I was going to say, there's also another subplot to this. So you've got the police brutality with their friend being beaten up. Then you've also got police brutality there. And this was happening this time in France and still happens today. Also the subplot about racists. So you've got gangs of skinheads going around like targeting them as well. So it was a very hard time to be growing up, basically. Like,
yeah. But then you see also, there is a reprisal where they see some guy shoots Aziz's brother.
Yes. He comes out with a shotgun, don't he?
You've got me doubting if that is Aziz's brother now. But her anyway, that policeman who's been helping him, who I think is Aziz's brother, he gets shot in the arm. Which is interesting to see, because I thought that was going to have a moment where
they shoot him back.
No, where Vince and... Because Vince and Aziz and Hubert are nearby and they run over with some kids to see it. And a bunch of police show up as well. And take down whoever shot him, or I think he runs away or something. But I thought Vince was going to see that and kind of have a reaction on him, where he would not maybe like think, oh, this is fucking stupid. Like, I can't shoot someone. Like, this is crazy. I know that guy. He helped us earlier, and now he's been shot. you know, I thought he'd put a face on the idea of it, because in his head he's just shooting a policeman, not some individual.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem to at all. If anything, it seemed to spur him on more and get him more excited about it.
Yeah, I was trying to work out about that whole shooting thing where he just runs out with a shotgun. I took it that, again, this is all you know, me looking at the plot. It could be totally hypothetical. I thought that could have been one of the beaten up kids' family members who just ran out and was like, "You deserve this," and then just shot him. I don't know if that's true, but
I don't know. It could have been anyone. I think it was more a case of...
It would be a bit difficult without motive to basically just run out and try and shoot police officers, because you know you're going to prison if you do that. But I take it they hate him so much for their previous whatever they've done that they just
this is also the day after a riot.
Yeah, exactly.
And the day after a riot, it's not like, well, that's done. You don't know, like, it's still rioty. Do you know what I mean? Like, in the air. Like, do you remember during the 2011 riots in London?
Yeah, I was about to say
the days between the riots, I mean, it was kind of non-stop for 5 days, but it had a different feel in the air. Like, I remember walking around with people smoking weed in front of the police. You know, when there was that sort of like response where people were walking around en masse as like a vigilante thing to stop, you know, to try and deter looters and stuff from certain areas. But you'd be walking around, and I remember people were smoking weed in front of the police and like offering it to them as a joke. And there was like, the police were like sort of laughing it off, being like, no. And there was a whole different air of what was okay to do and what the line was and what you could do. And there was a different tension in the air about everything. Yeah. So the day after a riot, there's a certain energy that you, like, everything has, where people do things they wouldn't necessarily do. Like, if you wouldn't hit someone, if you would maybe hit someone in that situation one day, you might stab them the next that day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything's amplified.
See, the reason we always jinx each other, and it's funny because you always think of something, and I'm like, I'm not even lying. I'm like, that came into my head at that same point. Because every film that I watch, I try and kind of make real life comparisons to like kind of feel how I would feel in that situation. And obviously, living in where we live in the suburbs in London, I would say, we don't get riots, and this is the only time it's ever happened to us. Well,
riots, it's not like there's riots found in fucking
but
other areas every day.
At this time, it was around our areas, you know what I mean? And I'm struggling to think, in context, why did those riots start? Was it because of the shooting of that guy? Anyway.
Well, it was... It started off as the shooting of Mark Duggan, who turned out to be a hitman. But he, it became another thing entirely. It became on social media, people being able to hit, because it wasn't like one massive riots. It was little pockets of riots everywhere. That's why it was so hard. And I was in Enfield Town, not rioting obviously, but I was in Enfield Town when the riots broke out there. And I saw the first thing they went for, they weren't throwing even stuff at the police. They went straight for the jewellery shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Ripped the shutters off, took all the jewellery. So it became it became like it was looting, and also a trend of, we can coordinate this through BlackBerry Messenger and other things, and be really organised and just hit places and rob loads of places. And I remember seeing, like, you'd see geezers who looked dodgy as fuck, but were dressed very nice in very big Hummers, driving around like frantically speaking into a phone. So I got the feeling it was not everyone, but certain people were more coordinated again, even like getting run around by gangs.
But my whole point...
But the whole thing was... to be honest, it would take a while to unpack it, because it was like quite an interesting thing.
My whole point of that is, though, you know, it's fair enough writing about the original cause, but it wasn't really a riot. It was people more looting, wasn't it? They saw it as an opportunity, and they took their opportunity.
It wasn't a protesting riot,
Yes. And whereas Haine is kind of like, they are rioting against the police for good reason. Do you know what I mean? But that's beside the point. That's kind of the only kind of comparison I have. And you're talking about those vigilante groups that went round Enfield. Let's be honest, between you and me, Declan, you went along to one of them to kind of see what was going on. Let's be fair about it. They just wanted to have a scrap.
No. Well, maybe some of them.
Oh, do you
well, I was there. You
weren't.
weren't.
Do you think they genuinely was trying to stop stuff? Or do you think they just wanted to have a little scrap?
Most people there were... Well, firstly, why was I there? I wasn't just down for a scrap, was I?
Fair enough, yeah.
I mean... I know it sounds, when you say it all, it sounds a bit silly, and it wasn't like, you're calling it vigilante group, weren't all there with like fucking superhero masks and capes.
Batman just...
Like, it was a presence to try and deter
yeah.
And you say it like that, but like, they literally were in the high street 2 minutes down the road from me, burning down cars, burning down buildings, burning cars, like, it was scary at the time. It's like, nice to joke about it now and whatever, and you can say, you can plant new... reasons for why you'd do that, but it literally was. It really did feel like you had to defend your little patch of ground. Do you know what I mean? Like it was nuts, and you didn't know this was 4 days in, and it was escalating wildly every day. You didn't know if they were going to burn down the whole fucking high street and start coming into people's homes the next day. You didn't know what was going to happen. Now, saying that, I guarantee some of the people there were fucking idiots. Like a small percentage of them. Some of them there were racist.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the point I was trying to get at.
And but the thing is, that's kind of what the news went with in terms of describing it. But I mean, you know, like our friendship group, I was there with a black guy and a Turk and an Iranian. Like, it wasn't like it was a fucking EDL rally.
But it's funny because there was like. It was a really big thing at the time because there was like news reporters from all over the world. Like,
we got interviewed by like the BBC
TV.
French thing. They definitely didn't use any of our interviews.
And then like I saw the interview, I think, or I saw someone and they were like, "We're here to protect our area." I was just
like those people are all dickheads. What's he called? Someone, I won't say his name, but you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. He was interviewed by French News, and he started pretending he had like a wife and kids at home. And he said he was like 48. Yeah. And he was going like, "My kids are terrified at home." Just straight up lying.
Going back to the film, the French are really cool at like protesting. You have the
that's one way of saying it. They fucking love a riot.
You have the whole. It's called the yellow jackets, isn't it?
Yeah.
They go around with like high vis jackets.
Mate, they are hardcore for going on strike.
And they're all like working class, and they've done 2 protests recently because is it Macron? I don't know.
Yeah, whatever the fuck
he's proper. Not on the level of like Australia, but very like strong. Like,
strict on COVID.
Vaccination stuff. You can't go in. So they went out and smashed up everything. The other one that was some of it's brilliant. I'm not saying that one, but they introduced more speed cameras or raised the speed limit on motorways, and they didn't like it. So what they done is they found every single speed camera in the country, and every single one they smashed up.
See, I'm all for that. That's fucking brilliant.
So they're broken. Like some of them they just smash with baseball bats. Others they get like spray paint cans and spray all over the cameras, so it was fucked. And they just took down the whole network. And I'm like, jeez.
Bravo, man. I'm all for that sort of shit.
Yeah, like it's so funny, man. But where do we get to in the film? Sidetrack there a little.
Well, we're talking about it all over the shop anyway. So the scene, so the whole subplot with he owes money to this guy called Snoopy.
No, I think Snoopy owes him money for some.
Sorry, Snoopy owes him money. Why did he owe him money again?
I think he bought drugs with him or something.
Okay, so he owes him $100 or bucks
it's
or whatever.
Nothing, basically.
Yeah, it's nothing, but as Vince says, it's the principle.
Yeah.
So they head down there, and this is the whole reason why they get stranded in an area they don't know.
Yeah.
So he lives in like a wealthy part of Paris.
Yes.
So they head down there, and they're trying to get into his apartment block at first. Now they're like ringing on the thing, and it's like a really wealthy, like luxury sort of apartment block. So they're ringing on all the buzzers. It's like you when you're trying to get in here. You always forget my buzzer.
What number is it? I don't know.
So they're ringing on the buzzers, and these like rich French white people are answering, and they're like, "Oh, we're looking for Snoopy." So they're like, "What? Who's this?" So anyway, they eventually get in, and he's like this sort of. He's this white Parisian kind of weird. He's got that flamboyance some people get when they do way too much coke.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not... I don't mean like he's camp, but he's bizarre, and he's sort of in these...
He turns up
he's
wearing
in,
like a dressing gown and like...
Well, he's not even wearing that. He's wearing like pajama shorts or something, really skimpy pajama shorts, and he's like bowling around, and he's offering them coke, and they're all like amazed that this guy's flat. And Vince immediately kind of... No, Vince actually looks up to him at first, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He likes him. And he's like a little kid. He's like showing off his gun.
Yeah, because he has a gun. Snoopy has a gun.
And
then Vince is like, so have I.
Yeah, and he like whips it out, and he's like, oh, look at this. And at first he's like kind of happy because Hubert's saying like, put that away. And he thinks like, he's loving it, like he's in with the big gangster guy, like they're both showing off their guns. So Snoopy, what a dumb name. Snoopy's like, I want to see a trick. It's an old magic trick. So he puts one bullet, takes all the bullets out and puts one bullet into the revolver. And he puts it to his head, pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
He spins it and pulls the trigger.
It's like Deer Hunter.
And mate, I was thinking that as well, because is there any more intense scenes in movies than a fucking Russian roulette scene?
Mate, I only watch Deer Hunter, not Sidetracking, once a year.
Yeah.
Because I get so fucking depressed after it. It's a good film, but I'm like, that's drained me.
That sequence in the Russian roulette sequence, that's up there. That's like top 10 scenes of all time, man. That is fucking terrifying.
I remember do you remember those sweets that you get? Revels?
Yeah. They did a...
Yeah, basically... For anyone that's watching this that hasn't had Revels, it's basically an English-British sweet in a bag. So you got all different ones, and most of them are nice. So there's like 5 or 6. You get toffee, you get orange, which is nice, but there's one that's coffee flavoured.
Oh, and it tastes like shit.
Horrible. So they've done this advert where they're picking them out the bag.
But it's done like hunter. As the deer hunter in Vietnam with a bunch of Vietnamese.
He's wearing like the red bandana. And then he gets it, and he just sort of...
and they're all going, yay! And like throwing money on the table, like, come on!
And I just thought, do you remember one of those adverts that just sticks in your head?
That is a brilliant advert.
But Snoopy is kind of like Deer Hunter again, so he's taking the bullet out, and everyone's like, no! And bearing in mind, Snoopy, there's like coke all over the table, and he's coked off his nut, so everyone's like, he's just going to blow
and you could just see it. Like, know the moment they walked in. It felt like that scene from Boogie Nights, where you just know it's... I mean, they're robbing him anyway, but there's like this weird tension in the air. Yeah. And it's that cocaine-fueled sort of tension where, what's this guy going to do?
Snoopy's also got a pair of nunchucks as well. And he just starts spinning them around. I'm like, shit. So basically, then him and Vince getting... No, he starts slapping Vince, doesn't he?
No, so basically...
Banging him up.
So he's put the gun to his head, slipped a bullet in, put the gun to his head, and pulled the trigger. And they're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? So then he's going, let's up the stakes. So he puts 2 bullets in, he puts another bullet in, and he spins it, and he gives it to Vince. And he's like, do it. And up to this point, he's been super friendly, and he's still sort of being friendly. He's like, come on, do it. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that. Give me my gun. And then he slaps him. And he's like, do it. And he slaps him again. And you see Vince is getting pissed off. But again... When it comes down to it, he doesn't actually have the bottle. He doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, he doesn't. And
he takes his gun, and then they're both kind of putting their guns in his face. And he keeps his gun. No, he doesn't keep his gun, but he's still got his gun.
Who's Snoopy or him?
Oh, maybe he's doing it to his own gun. But anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
So they're like getting all pissed off, but they leave. And as Vince is getting dragged out, what's he called? Snoopy shows him the gun. And he shows him he had the 2 bullets the whole time.
Yeah.
And he was like, obviously, he said at the start, do you want to see magic?
Yeah.
So that was the trick. He never put the bullets in. But also, the scene was smart because that guy, without them even saying we're here for the money, he knew, this little tow rag's coming in, trying to get his 100 quid.
I think it was something.
And
pathetic.
it's his way of like psychologically just bitching him out.
Yeah, and then obviously they have to go because they've had that. And then, it wasn't Vince's money because Saïd knows him. So when they leave, Saïd's like to Vince or Viz, like, I'm never going to get that money now. So once again, he's pissed them off.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think that was...
So why did he do it? And maybe he was just coked up and crazy.
He's just an idiot, basically. Yeah. And once again, it's just kind of like... Hubert and Saïd are there, like, all the time. You can tell they're now getting frustrated because this guy just has a thing of just constantly fucking up.
It's the Mean Streets thing where Harvey Keitel's just being like, why are you making it so hard to be your friend? Come on, look.
Basically, like, he's a compulsive liar, he's an idiot, like, you know what I mean?
Did you like him? Did you like any of the three guys?
Do you know what? I actually really liked... out of all of them, I like Saïd the most.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was like...
He was funny.
I like that scene on the roof where they're getting high and he's like, oh, this dope is really good. And he says like this weird rhyme, which was like really funny. Like,
I don't remember that.
Tick-tock the clock or something like that.
I liked Aziz in the way you're saying, and I liked Hubert. But I just couldn't get behind Vince, man. Because he had no redeeming quality. He was a piece of shit. And he was stupid. Yeah. And he wasn't, like, he was an arsehole as well. He's
just, everyone has that friend in their group who, like, you see every so often, and then you're like, you tolerate them, but afterwards, secretly, everyone's like, oh, can't believe we went out with him last night. He's such a
It's one of those things where
like,
it becomes, they're like a funny character when you're young, and the older you get, it starts to become more annoying and kind of like sadder.
I get that from that,
Yeah. But, so they leave there, and that's when they get locked out, and they're trying to get into the cabbie. So they decide, once they get kicked out of the art exhibit, they decide they're going to break into a car. What are you pointing at me?
No, because you missed the vital scene.
What?
They leave Snoopy straight away. The police are already there. The police are just there. All right, boys, and that's when they get nicked, isn't it?
Right. Sorry, I did miss that.
Yeah. So they go out Snoopy's apartment. Police are just already there. I reckon it was someone that they're ringing the bell to, like one of the old women.
Yeah, probably.
It was like these people have just come in, like kind of.
So they get nicked, and Vince gets away.
Vince runs away like a pussy, as he always does, or Viz. But,
well, to be fair, I mean, it's one of those things where, what point is there of you all getting arrested?
But one of them, I think Hubert or Saïd makes a funny comment, because obviously they're in the posh era. He goes, wow, you guys are quick. Where I live, the police don't turn up for 2 weeks even after you're dead. So I thought that was quite funny. And then they take him off and then they start beating him.
Oh, it's horrible. They get them both tied to chairs. Yeah. And you can just tell that this isn't the moment where you're like, I know my rights, where's my lawyer? Yeah. Like, they are fucking doing whatever the fuck they want with you, short of killing you.
So they then get...
They don't torture them too bad, though, do they?
No, they're not being racist or anything. They're just...
Well, no, they are being racist, but I mean...
Would you say talk or torture?
No, sorry, I said torture.
Oh, torture. No, they're
like, in terms of what I was kind of like...
They're not waterboarding.
Nah, or like, well, they're not even beating them too, really. Like, they're just freaking them out.
So they go back. Then they get released, because obviously they got nothing on them.
Yeah.
And obviously...
Meet up with Vince again.
After they get nicked, it kind of follows just what Vince does for like the time being in between. So he just does.
He goes to the cinema.
He goes cinema, and then he goes to a kickboxing fight.
Oh yeah.
And then they get released, and they catch up with him again, and then I think he might even apologise at one point.
But that's when they start looking for a place to sleep.
Yeah, and then there's basically quite a cool scene which sticks in my mind, where they're arguing about Looney Tunes. And then one of them's saying, like, Coyote's the bad motherfucker. And the other one's like, no, he's not. Roadrunner always like gets one over him. And then someone says Sylvester. And then he's...
Or the cat.
Yeah, and then they're like saying, but Tweety always fucks him over. Like,
no, the ultimate one is Bugs Bunny.
Oh, Bugs Bunny.
Because he's the character... He's the character you like and want to be, but also gets away with.
I like Daffy Duck.
Yeah, Daffy Duck, he was always pissed off. And,
yeah. But that was quite cool. And
who no one liked was, what was that other duck?
Donald Duck.
Donald Duck. No one gave a shit about Donald Duck.
I think there was one scene earlier where they keep talking about one of their... No, I think in the first scene where he goes to get Vince and he's like asleep.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, get up, and he turns around. It's quite funny that you said that, and he goes, you suck, Donald Duck. So yeah. And then
so they meet back up. So they end up breaking into this car.
Oh yeah.
And they're breaking into this car and they're trying to hotwire it. And while they're trying to hotwire it, this old drunk man, he comes over and knocks on the window and he goes, "Oh, hello." And they're like, "Fuck off, man, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, my wife." And they're like, "What about her?" And he's like, "She left." And they're like, "We don't have time for this, man. We're trying to steal a car."
No, but he saves him.
Because he's a G. Because he's trying to tell him, first of all. Doesn't he tell him, like...
He's like, "You're doing it wrong. Press this wire."
Yeah.
And then they do it, it works.
And, no, it doesn't work because they never get it working. But he's trying to help him. And then he's like, "Excuse me." And they're like, "What?" And he's like, "There's a police car coming."
Yeah.
So they all get out and start running for it. And he runs over. He jumps on the car bonnet and starts dancing.
Yeah. So he saves them and they fuck off. And then I think they then manage to finally get a train back. No, they don't. Because they run off and that's when they encounter skinheads, I think.
That's right, yeah. So they meet a bunch. So basically Vince fantasized. They're trying to get a train, but it's still not running or something. Yeah. And they come back up and they see Vince pointing his finger like a gun at the police who can't see him. Yeah. And they just get picked. This is when they finally kind of lose it with him a bit, where they're like, "You want to fucking go shoot a policeman, do it yourself. Don't involve us." So they start walking away from him. And he's a bit pissed off. He's like, "Whatever, blah, blah, blah." So Hubert and Aziz are walking around the corner and they get jumped by some skinheads who start beating the shit out of him.
Hubert comes along and starts battering him. No, he beats 2 or 3 and then Vince...
No, Hubert's getting the shit kicked out of him
Vince
as well.
Vince pulls out a gun.
And then Vince puts a gun to one of their heads. So they all run off. And then they pretty much kidnap this little skinhead. And it's the final kind of point of Vince being confronted with like the reality of his fantasy. And he, even Hubert, who's usually sort of the voice of reason, is saying, "Shoot him, kill him." And they've beaten the shit out of him. And he can't do it. He just bottles it.
I think Hubert knows that he's not going to do it anyway. So
I don't think he does.
Hubert,
because he seems disappointed when he doesn't.
Hubert wants him to do it because he's black. It's probably not his first run-in with
he's
skinheads.
Well, I mean, Vince is a Jew, Aziz is an Arab,
true.
so they're all on the hit list.
Yeah, they're all on the hit list. And then watching the scene. At one point, I thought he's going to actually do it, but then he doesn't, and I'm like, yeah, that probably was going to happen.
I mean, it'd be inconsistent with everything he'd shown about his character up till then. Like, he is that guy. He's like, "Oh, do you know what I would have done if I'd been there?" He's that guy. Like, he's always about what he would do, or "Oh, you're lucky." Like, he's a hold me back sort of guy. He's not an actual real deal.
Yeah, an analogy will be, not naming any names, the guy that whenever you get into fight into pubs, like, he'd be nowhere to be seen, and then when the fight had finished, he'd turn up and be like, "I would have battered those guys."
Do you know what? It's funny. I can't even remember who you're talking about, so you're gonna have to tell me off screen. But
everyone would be like, "Well, where was she then?" He was like, "I was in the toilet."
Yeah, do you know what I was about to do? I know who you're talking about.
You know. Obviously, we won't name names. But after that, I think finally, it's like 6 in the morning. I just thought to myself, they get a lot done in one night.
Yeah.
Like, normally by about 6, I've had about 4 points on my bedtime.
Yeah.
Do you know
Tame lies comparison.
But they finally able to get home.
Vince decides, he's like, "Do you know what? I don't want this fucking gun."
No, actually, no. We're missing out a scene here because they go to a mall, and then there's like an analogy of someone Hubert, I think, sees like a guy in a leather jacket, and he's like, "Oh, you see the sheeps in their leather jackets, they all think they look so cool." And then they see the screen, they're watching like the TV, and it turns out that the guy that got beaten up by the police has subsequently passed away. Yeah, so they're like, "Fuck." And then they say, "Where's Vince?" And that's when he's having a fantasy because he's
Oh,
there,
that's when
and
he's having his fantasy,
Yeah.
yeah.
He shoots the police officer through a window, and I'm like,
But it's in his head.
yeah, and I'm
like,
like,
it's not actually
there's
happening.
no way he's done this. Literally.
Well, it was also like a handgun doesn't send you flying through the air.
It was
Like,
like a fucking rocket launch. It's like Grand Theft Auto when you.
which kind of again was like it's a
Do
fantasy.
you remember in like Vice City we used to have the like Magnum?
No.
It used to be so strong.
I never actually played Vice
You
City.
used to shoot them and they used to like fly across. It was exactly like that.
But yeah, so Vince is like, they got back home and Vince is like, do you know what? I don't even want this anymore. He's kind of accepted that he's not that. He's accepted that he's being a fucking idiot. And he gives the gun to Hubert, which I was a bit like, get rid of it yourself. I was like, this is going to end bad. I thought, oh no, this is going to end horribly for Hubert now, somehow.
Yeah.
And you see Hubert's walking away and you see the police show up. And at first I was like, oh no, they're going to arrest him and like find the gun. But they start arresting Vince and Aziz.
Yeah.
And they have, this policeman's got Aziz, he's got Vince up against the police car and he's sort of holding his gun like that. And he's like berating him and saying like, you're not so tough now, are you? Bang, 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 bang. The gun goes off by accident. Vince is dead. He's on the floor. Everyone's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
The policeman's clearly like,
he
didn't mean to do
think
it.
the policeman didn't mean to do it.
He's like in absolute shock, like,
Yeah.
fuck. Like, I just killed this guy and my life is fucked. And Hubert walks over to him, kind of calmly, like the other guy, the policeman sees him holding the gun, but doesn't really react yet because he's in so much shock. And then they put the guns on each other, and it zooms in. The shot, the screen is framed by both their guns pointed at each other, and it zooms in past it into the face of Aziz, as we hear that riddle from the beginning of the movie.
The guy's falling, society's like...
He's falling past each window saying, it's going okay so far, okay so far. And it's not how you fall, it's when you hit the ground. Yeah.
How you hit the ground,
And I guess that's just making the point of like, they're both part of the problem, they're both fucked.
Then you hear the gunshot go off, so you assume that...
They both kill each other.
But before this scene, which was quite cool, there seems to be a theme throughout this film where they're always telling jokes, I guess to like get them like a bit of comic relief. And then I think Saïd says to Vince, do you want to hear a joke? And I think he says, Joker walks into a bar and starts pounding on someone dressed in black, someone dressed in a cape, and then says, "You're not so tough now, Batman." And the person on the floor looks up and says, "I'm a nun."
That's pretty funny.
And he's like, it's kind of like,
that's fucking funny.
An analogy of like the police just beating on the little person kind of thing, and then that happens when they're walking there. There's kind of
my only
probably
problem,
got that joke wrong, but it was funnier on the film.
So I really like this film, and I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah,
I'm definitely going to watch it again in a few years. My only problem with these sort of films in general is that, and it's a fact of it's a fact that you're going to make films out of the most interesting people rather than the average Joe public. But whenever they're trying to make these sort of messages, they end up using people like the three main characters in this, who are scumbags.
Yeah.
They are scumbags. They're pieces of shit, and they're fucking idiots to varying degrees.
Yeah.
I like Hubert, but he's also a bit of a scumbag himself. Yeah. And that they use that, they do the same thing like the press does in a negative way, where they pick those sort of characters to represent anyone who happens to be from an impoverished area.
Yeah. And
it's just a nature of like, look, if I was going to make a film about that sort of area, that's just who you make it about. It is just naturally what you do, isn't it?
I totally get your point, but at the same time, Declan, you wouldn't want them to be like running around like angels and helping old ladies cross the street.
Well, no, that's my point.
And then all of a sudden, a police officer comes home and starts battering them.
But that's my point, and you have to make it about those guys because it's not interesting otherwise.
Yeah, and I guess the whole point of this film, from the director's point of view, is, you know, the police are bad, but the people they're dealing with aren't angels either.
Yeah, they're scumbags.
Like, do you know what I mean? So,
well, I suppose a better way... Yeah, that's true, actually. A better way... But it's just... Do you know what really annoyed me the most was that... Do you ever see that film... Attack the Block.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah. So what annoyed me about that one was it's about like a bunch of
hood rats.
Yeah, hood rats in London somewhere.
Starts off with them robbing some nurses.
That was my thing because it's one thing where, say, like Goodfellas, you're never supposed to like... You might like them as, like, they're entertaining characters. You're never supposed to get behind them like they're heroes in Goodfellas. Whereas in Attack the Block, you're supposed to get behind the kids by the end of it. And they're supposed to have... you're supposed to buy into this morality of, they only mug people who aren't from the estate. Yeah. As if that's all right. Like, it opens with them mugging... But anyway, I'm going off to a whole other thing.
Back to that film did annoy me, because at the end it's like... The guy that like mugged her originally was like, "You're all right, actually," and then she's like, "Thank you for saving me."
Yeah, and she's like, "Why the fuck does she need your approval?"
Yeah.
Well, because she turned out to live in the same building as you. Now it's bad that you robbed and fucking traumatized a woman coming home from work alone.
One, you know?
Are they?
Yeah.
Because
I thought it was an alright film.
Oh no, it's a good in terms of like what it was trying to do and how it's made and everything. It's really good. I just couldn't get behind that, and I was kind of as well. That film was essentially saying, here's the representatives for this sort of forgotten class or whatever they were trying to say.
It's a bit
and
stereotyped.
Well, it was just like
a nice nurse is walking home from her night shift and it's all dark, and then all of a sudden kids on bike from the estates.
Well, it was just a justifying of it. It pissed me off. But anyway, Haine, fucking brilliant movie.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I've seen it twice now. But to be honest, I'd like to do a whole review of just French cinema in general, because it does have some gems. Like,
French movies are fucking class.
Could you say Leon would be in it? I would say
it's not French speaking, is it? Am I thinking
No,
of a different film?
That's true. No, you're right.
Well, let's not rattle them off now. Anyway,
have Amelie, you could have Delicatessen, you could have quite a few Haine.
But there's all the classics back in the day as well.
Yeah, whatever. But I really liked it. I mean, you know, there's faults with it. I mean, what you just said is a fact. Like,
it's a smart film where it doesn't clearly come down on one side than the other.
Exactly.
It doesn't alienate anyone, unless maybe you're a skinhead. It pretty much gives everyone a fair shake of the stick.
Yeah, I know.
Everyone comes out looking like dumb cunts who aren't helping the problem in it.
And I think it was probably... This is an independent film. I don't know the director's upbringing, but maybe he was from those areas himself and decided to make films. I think it was a pretty accurate representation of the times, which is what you want. Cool as fucking black and white. The reason for that, we don't know. We discussed that earlier. But overall, I thought it was a brilliant film.
Yeah, class fucking movie.
Yes.
Alright, until next time.
Go
fuck yourself.
Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe.